I'll just kick us off here a little bit, and we're kind of going to tell the story about what happens in the fire service here in the county. We're going to kind of frame it around wildland fire because there's definitely some differences in how wildland fire is managed and how resources are ordered and that kind of thing than say like a structure fire or a vehicle accident or something along those lines. And as we get into the presentation here in a little bit, we're going to talk about that a whole bunch. So we're going to talk about the ordering process, the role of the Camino Command Center, the role of the regional GACs in Reading and Riverside, and the national GACs, and how all those things kind of work together to make the system that we have around us here today. And we're going to finish with some unique features of the system that exist here in El Dorado County. And we're going to save those till the end there too. But what we have here in El Dorado County, the way it's been constructed over the last 5 or 6 decades with different fire chiefs and the county governments and all of those kind of things. There's a sense of collaboration and community in this county that doesn't exist in a lot of other places. And that's a good thing for the four of us sitting up here right now too. So we're going to get into that, and we'll talk about more what those specific things are as we kind of get into this. But that's kind of where we're taking the presentation today. So any questions or comments or anything like that before we kind of get going on? Yes, sir.
Can you present your names?
Absolutely. Starting with hard questions already. Wow. Sorry about that. But yeah, so I'm Mike Blank, and I'm the unit chief for the Cal Fire Amador El Dorado unit and all.
I'm William Wagner. I'm one of the assistant chiefs for the El Dorado National Force.
Hello, Troy Martin. I'm a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office, and I oversee the Office of Emergency Services, OES, and the Emergency Operations Center when it's open.
Good afternoon, Tim Bordello, Fire Chief for El Dorado County Fire. I'm also the chair of the El Dorado County Fire Chiefs Association.
So they're going to use a lot of terminology. Public safety likes to use acronyms like GAC and all that. Sounds like you're coughing up a fur ball, but it's not. It's so if you call on it, raise your hand. We want to make sure everybody they talk clear text for all of us so we know what they're saying.
Yep. So if you want to bump up slide there.
Oh yeah.
So what is GAC?
No. What is GAC is a Geographic Area Coordination Centers, and we're going to explain those ad nauseum here in a few minutes. But they're an important part of the system. So as we kind of go through this, we're going to define some of those acronyms because we do use a lot of acronyms. So what I think we want to kind of start off with here, and again, talking about responsibilities about wildland fire suppression and prevention. That's kind of what we're going to focus on for the next little bit here. So first thing to really kind of talk about is how the county is divided into ownership areas and then responsibilities for protection areas. And they are different areas around the county with some very different different agencies have different responsibilities for the fire protection there. So there'll be a couple more maps here as we go through this. So this is basically a map just showing the different ownerships in the county. I don't want to go through the legend on this one too much. This is not the important one. But go one more slide here. I think you might have to click these as we go. Yeah, these are kind of so. Again, for wildland fire suppression, prevention, and all of those kind of things, there are three responsibility areas that exist in El Dorado County, and these are the same for all 58 counties in the state of California. So the state of California is broken up into these different responsibility areas. El Dorado County is no different. Amador County is no different. So the first one is the state responsibility area. And in general, those are the lands and the areas that CAL FIRE is responsible for the wildland fire protection, suppression, prevention, all of those kind of things. Financially responsible for the strategy, tactics, and all of those kind of things. What makes a piece of land SRA is defined in the Public Resources Code. And it really is anything that's not incorporated and not owned by the federal government and is not used for primarily agricultural purposes. So it is the non-forest timberlands, it's the unincorporated areas of the county, it's privately owned lands, it's most of the SPI timberland, it's all of those kind of things. It's the recreational areas, the timberlands, those kind of things. It's all those areas around the county are what CAL FIRE is tasked with preventing fires, suppressing fires, and all of those kind of things. And one of the challenges that CAL FIRE has with that, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is the ownership piece of this. That CAL FIRE doesn't own any land that we have responsibility to protect or prevent fires on, and all of those kind of things. So we can kind of get into those challenges here a little bit more as we go into this. But, so any questions on state responsibility area, or maybe what CAL FIRE is kind of tasked with doing?
Getting here, are there any areas that overlap with responsibility, and if so, how do you determine the lead agents?
Yep, great. So it's a great question. Yeah, ask it again. It's a great question.
Are there any areas that overlap with responsibility, and if so, who takes the lead?
Yeah, can we maybe table that question for like 5, because we're gonna get right, that gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. So if there's no questions on that so far, I'm gonna hand it over to Ryan. He'll kind of talk about areas that the federal government
Yes.
is responsible.
Yeah. So much like what Chief Blankenheim was talking about, the federal responsibility area is the same. So it's owned or lands owned by the federal government. So nationally, as far as the Forest Service goes, we've got 640 million acres. For California, that's 47.8 million. Specifically for El Dorado County, we have about 600,000 acres with an additional 190,000 acres that's private property that falls within our area of responsibility. The same thing, we're responsible for we're the lead agency in terms of suppression, prevention, and all things fire related up within our lands.
So then the last piece of it is the lands that the local jurisdictions are responsible for, the local responsibilities area. If you want to talk on those then.
Thank you. The last one we're talking about is the local responsibility areas, and those are typically your incorporated cities. And in an incorporated city, it's actually the city that is responsible for that ground that's contained within their boundaries. Locally, for El Dorado County Fire, the only incorporated city we have is the city of Placerville, which is pretty small geographically. Through our partnerships with Cal Fire, the city of Placerville is what's considered a mutual threat zone, which means that any fire that originates, a wildland fire that originates in the city of Placerville, is an immediate threat to the state responsibility area which surrounds the city of Placerville. The benefit for that is that when we have a wildland fire within the city of Placerville limits, we partner with our Cal Fire teammates, and then they bring a lot to the table for us as far as the aircraft, the dozers, additional crews, all those things, and they shoulder the responsibility on that, providing that for the suppression of the fire. Absent of that, if it were just the city of Placerville as a standalone, we would need to have dozers, aircraft, all those things, or the cost associated with that. So again, partnerships is huge, and I think you see a good representation of the partnerships in this county. As Chief Lincoln and I mentioned, it isn't common everywhere, but we are very fortunate and blessed as citizens of this county to have the partnership that we do have.
Okay, any questions on that so far? Yes, sir.
I know certain counties contract with Cal Fire. They're called the county fire department, but it's actually Cal Fire personnel. Is there anything like that here in this county?
There is, on a much smaller scale. So in a lot of places in the state, Cal Fire's done this for, I don't know, 70 or 80 or 90 years. And all of these things are allowed through the Public Resources Code, which is a good thing. So there are plenty of places in the state where local jurisdictions, a lot of more counties, have contracted with Cal Fire for the local fire protection. Some of those have been around for a long time. Butte County Fire has been a CDF contract for 70 or 80 years. Fresno County Fire, Riverside County, San Luis Obispo. We have them throughout the state where Cal Fire is the county fire department, where we work for the county, we work for the board. We are a county fire department, but it's Cal Fire employees running the system. So we do have a version of that here locally in Cameron Park. It's not a county fire department; it's just a fire department for Cameron Park. So since 1997, Cameron Park has contracted with Cal Fire to provide the fire protection in there. So that's the only one of those that exists in this county. And the other big one, and we do this in other places too, but the one that's really important, I think, for this county and this ranger unit is the command center. We also have that same agreement for the command center, the dispatching services for all the fire agencies in Amador County and El Dorado County. So everybody in this county and everybody in Amador County are all on the same frequencies. That is an amazing efficiency. It's cumbersome and hard and all those kind of things, but the tangible benefits to having everybody on the same radio channel, talking to the same dispatcher at the same pod is unbelievably beneficial to the system as a whole. So to answer your question, yeah, Cal Fire does have the ability to contract with local governments to provide fire protection services, dispatching services, prevention services, and that kind of thing. And in those circumstances, it's our guys wearing Cal Fire uniforms. But that's kind of where the Cal Fire stops. There, we are working for the local jurisdictions at that point in time. Yes, sir.
Can you give a quick thumbnail on the little stepchild, the Tahoe Basin?
Yes. So the Tahoe Basin, half of it anyway, actually a quarter of it, I guess, is in El Dorado County. The other half of it's in Nevada, half of it's in Placer. We got a piece here in El Dorado County. So the difference is for us. So for the CAL FIRE side of things, and we're going to get into direct protection areas and what CAL FIRE is responsible for and all of those kind of things. There's no differences on what happens in the Tahoe Basin and Alpine County from the CAL FIRE perspective. It's part of this unit. We are all come out of the same command center, all that kind of thing. What is different though is there's a different national forest that's in charge of the basin. I don't know if you want to kind of describe that a little bit.
Yeah, and so the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit is everything inside of the drip line of Lake Tahoe. So it spans 2 states, and if we're looking at it, so technically it's what we would call a Region 5 forest. So Region 5 is geographically California with a little bit of Nevada, right, for the Lake Tahoe Basin. But in reality, that management unit spans, I think, 6 or 7 counties and 2 different states. As well as different geographic areas that we were talking about, the GACs. So like North Ops, the Geographic Area Command Center, and then Region 4, which is the Great Basin and their GAC. So lots of different functions up there, which is why they just made it its own unit. Because before that, I think it was, I can't remember the date offhand of that, but it was covered by 3 or 4 different national forests before they just encompassed it into one to make it its own unit.
Yeah, did that answer the question? Was that
More or less.
okay?
How does the Diamond Springs Fire Protection District fit into this?
Gallagher.
We are fortunate enough to have Chief Gallagher. So Chief Gallagher is part of the El Dorado County Fire Chiefs Association, and I'm representing, not only my agency but also the county chiefs. And so how we operate within El Dorado County Fire with our partners with EDSO, CAL FIRE, and Forest Service does not differ from how Chief Gallagher interacts with those same agencies, Rescue Fire, Cameron Park Fire, which is actually CAL FIRE, but we all play under the same sheet of music operationally with some drop boundary, closest resource, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But we all have the same partnership and collaboration, no different with whatever agency or fire district you happen to be part of.
And we don't have any unincorporated areas, so all of our areas responsibility area. So CAL FIRE has responsibility for the wildland section of our areas. Springs.
So your structure?
Our responsibility structures there. And then CAL FIRE, we don't have responsibility.
Okay. So we're move on to the next thing we're going to talk about is the direct protection areas, and I think we're getting into the question that you're wanting answered now too. So maybe I've got it up there. So okay. So what's on the screen right now is a map of what we're calling the direct protection areas in El Dorado County, and some of these conversations are hard to do linear because we're going to talk about the agreements that define direct protection areas in a few minutes, but I'll talk about what the direct protection areas are. So we talked about, the state of California has certain responsibilities for their lands. The federal government has responsibilities for their lands. The local agencies have responsibility for their lands. The direct protection areas are primarily between the federal fire agencies and CAL FIRE, this is the state fire agency. What's been recognized a long time ago was ownership was not necessarily contiguous. You look at a lot of the ownership maps around the state, it has to do with surveys that were 100 years ago and how the railroads were built and all of those kind of things. But at the end of the day, the map of California's ownership is a big checkerboard on, federal government owns a piece of land here, the state owns a piece of land here, there's a private piece here. It's like that all across the state. So to make things more efficient, we tried to break the state up into contiguous areas where one agency would protect an area where they have resources. So in this county, we have it kind of divided up on there. In general, the way it works here is the blue stuff is the CAL FIRE state responsibility areas, and that's generally the areas that are where the people live, it's where the infrastructure is, it's the watersheds, it's the communities, it's a lot of those kind of things. On the eastern side of the county, it's pretty much the federal DPA, meaning that they've got the wildland fire responsibilities for things generally kind of east of Kybers, east of Pollock Pines, kind of somewhere, kind of in that neighborhood. Now, that's very different than the ownership. There's federal ownership scattered all throughout the county, down here on El Dorado Hills, all over the place. But CAL FIRE and the Forest Service have agreed to years ago that we're going to protect this area for you, and you'll protect this area for us. It's been called traded acres. It's been called the balance of acres. It's been called direct protection areas, that kind of thing. But that's really what that is it's an attempt at efficiency. So the agency that has the resources in a given area is going to provide the fire protection in that given area. So, the Forest Service doesn't have to put a station down in El Dorado Hills. Those we don't want those things. That's a good thing. This is a very good, my opinion, a very good collaborative process that leads to some efficiencies and how we do business. Anything you want to add to that?
And I was going to say, and it does lead to that overlapping jurisdiction because the Forest Service, we're traditionally a wildland fire agency. So structure, a structure catches on fire in Kairos. It's up inside federal DPA. We have wildland responsibility, but in reality, that would fall to Chief Cordera and El Dorado County for that structure response for that. So we have kind of broken it up by roles, if that makes sense as well. So that's kind of where the overlap and where we cover. So the county takes care of the forest in terms of structure firefighting. We're there mainly for the wildland piece.
Yeah, and the biggest piece of the overlapping jurisdictions is probably in the CAL FIRE SRA, the CAL FIRE direct protection areas, and the local fire districts. A lot of times that is the exact same piece of dirt. I think probably, except for the city of Placerville, I think probably 100% of Tim's fire district is also SRA and CAL FIRE's direct protection areas. So that's incumbent upon Tim and I and our agencies to figure out how we're going to do those things together. And this county, that thing's been figured out a long time ago and it works well. So.
How does BLM fit?
BLM is another one of the federal is another federal firefighting agencies. They are primarily a land ownership, land management agency, and they don't have a ton of resources for prevention, for suppression, for a lot of those kind of things. So there are a lot of areas around the state where the BLM land is in the CAL FIRE direct protection areas because CAL FIRE does have, the resources, the engines, and all those kind of things there. And in turn, it's usually the Forest Service ends up protecting federal land because of us protecting the BLM land. So
that would just be a mutual aid situation.
100%. Yep.
And locally, as far as resources go, we do have the Folsom Lake Hand Crew, which is the BLM Veterans Group. So that's comprised mainly of veterans.
So purely from a layperson's perspective on this, at what point does budget enter the conversation relative to fire protection?
So, perfect question. So when we're talking about the overlapping jurisdictions, this is a good way to kind of frame this conversation. Like I said, 100% of Tim's fire district, minus the city of Placerville, is in the SRA, where Tim has his responsibilities for all his stuff there, and I've got my responsibilities for all the wildland protection and all of those kinds of things there. Wildland firefighting is ridiculously expensive, and it takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of very big, powerful, expensive equipment, and all of those kind of things. CAL FIRE has an operational budget that is committed to just for incident management and fire suppression, and it gets renewed every year. It's called the 0900 fund. It's the emergency fund is what it's for, and it is earmarked specifically for suppression and incident management of wildland fires in the state of California. And it's, I hate to say this, but it's a few dollars shy of $1 billion this year. We're going to have $987 million or something like that for the fire suppression in California. So where the budget piece comes into this is CAL FIRE normally takes the lead role in wildland fire suppression in these areas, even though it's in the middle of Tim's fire district, that he's got real authority and needs and responsibilities and all of those kind of things there. But CAL FIRE has the budget and the resources to provide the airplanes, the hand crews, the incident management teams, and all those kind of things to take care of the big part of that problem there. So that kind of gets into like a unified command kind of a discussion where we don't generally go into unified command with local jurisdictions because of the dollar figures associated with what we're doing. We do go into unified command all the time with the Forest Service and those kind of agencies because they do have a full wildland fire department. They have airplanes and bulldozers and helicopters and hand crews and all those kind of things. So there's we're bringing equal resources to the table. So we do go into unified command quite a bit with the Forest Service. So part of CAL FIRE's mission is wildland fire suppression first and foremost and that kind of thing. But our operational priorities are identical to the fire district's operational priorities. And that's true here and that's true in other parts of the state where life always comes before property comes before the environment, those kind of things. So we always start with evacuation, structure defense, all of those kind of things, and then get into the other parts of the wildland fire. So our priorities line up with exactly what the fire district needs to do. And just because we're not in unified command necessarily, we have, Tim and his guys at our incident when there's something going on. We want to make sure that we are meeting local needs, local priorities, all of those kind of things. So we get the local people to come with us in these things. So we need their expertise and all those kind of things. And Tim brings all those resources and all of that kind of stuff. So there is a financial component to it for sure. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
I don't want to go right down rabbit hole on this one, but with federal budgets impacting U.S. Forest Service, is there any cause for concern for residents of El Dorado County?
I'm sure everybody's seen all the stuff going on in the feds, and there's a lot of stuff. I can tell you right now, as far as I know, and what we're dealing with is they're looking, potentially some restructuring and stuff. But right now, like for this fire season, we are staffed at or above 2024 levels, typically more than 2024 for our staffing. We're about a 90% permanent department. And with all the impacts and everything that's been going on in the nationally, as you guys have seen with regards to federal employees, our fire and fuel staff have not been impacted by that. So we're at or above our staffing levels from last year and fully capable and ready to respond.
Yeah, question. So the president just signed a wildfire executive order to consolidate wildfire agencies. What's that all about?
The executive order that dropped on, I believe it was last Friday at about 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm actually still waiting. Locally, I don't know a whole lot other than what you guys have read in the executive order. There were some timelines associated with that. I can't speak to what our department heads or our agency head is saying. I'm still waiting to hear kind of what our marching orders are going to be with that and what that looks like. I do know there's some proposed budgets out there that have already been kicked around that have different figures. But like I said, at least world according to Ryan, like the 90-day timeline, at least as far as I'm looking at, for me, would be, that kind of lines up with our fiscal year. So to me, it's like coming up with a plan and what funds are you going to need, to look at nationally as far as our budgets for FY26 is kind of what I'm doing. Past that, I don't know a whole lot other than what you guys do if you've read the executive order. It's pretty short. It's only like 2 or 3 pages.
Okay, just a curiosity question. Who's in Camino? Who do they work for? The dispatch? Who makes the decisions? Who to call and what to do?
yeah, no, that's a great question. We're almost to that part of the presentation. So, so if you can wait for 1 minute on it, we'll finish this up. We're going to talk through all those things. That's a phenomenal question. So, so that was kind of down and dirty on like direct protection areas and who's got responsibility for those kind of things. And so, are there any other questions or anything any way we can make that more clear if that's not clear yet? Okay. Let's move on. So if you go maybe 2 slides up, can I move this page here? Okay, so we're kind of going to walk through kind of what happens when there's, an incident happens and there's a 911 wall coming in and that kind of thing. And just so happens as we were putting this together, we had it across the street yesterday afternoon. So we kind of talked through that fire we had yesterday. It's kind of all these things played out. But so the command center in this county is in Camino, and it is run by CAL FIRE. It's a CAL FIRE command center. It's with a cooperative agreement through El Dorado County. There's one through Amador County, and then CAL FIRE. So there's 3 different agencies that provide staffing for the dispatch center up there. Amador County through an agreement, El Dorado through an agreement, then through CAL FIRE, and then Forest Service. So there's actually 4. I misspoke on it. There's 4 agencies that provide the staffing in there. So when a call comes in, there's a fire dispatch, and we can use yesterday's call as an example. So whatever time that was, 3 o'clock, 3:30 yesterday afternoon, there was a 911 call made from across the street over by the Bonanza wrecking yard. Somebody reporting a wildland fire starting behind the wrecking yard there. So that call, the way that works is, by law, any 911 call has to go to a primary PSAP, which is a public service answering point, and those are all law enforcement agencies. So the initial 911 call goes to the law enforcement agency in the county. It's a very quick conversation there. I think the question is medical law or fire. Somebody says fire, and the call ends up in Camino within about a second and a half. So within a few seconds of that 911 call being made, the caller is on the phone with our fire captain sitting on the dispatch floor in Camino up there. So the difference between a command center and a dispatch center is as soon as that fire captain picks up the phone, the guy on the other end says, "Hey, I have a vegetation fire, in this case on, Friend Creek Road, Frenchtown Road." The Cal Fire captain that took that phone call is now the incident commander of that fire. Even though there's nobody on scene, there's nobody there any longer lines, he is now the incident commander. We have, predetermined dispatch levels on what resources we send and all those kind of things. That we follow that probably 95% of the time. But those fire captains on the floor up there have every authority to make that different if they need to. So they can add resources to it. If the caller is telling them something different, they can not send the resources, they can send less resources, they can do whatever they need to do to make sure the incident response is getting there. So that is always the first incident commander is the fire captain, whether it's a Forest Service guy or the Cal fire captain on the dispatch floor out there. So what happens next? So the 911 call goes in, we know there's fire somewhere, we know it's on, in this case, Frenchtown Road over there. So the call location comes through with the 911 call, and this stuff happens literally instantaneously on the location information with an address or a GPS lat long, those kind of things. Those are instant that come in. Those are populated in front of the dispatcher right then and there. And then in this case of wildland fire, that call, that incident is populated on our GIS map on the screen in front of them. And it's pretty much that same map that we just put up there a few minutes ago. So the dispatcher knows instantly, okay, the fire is here. I know whose jurisdiction it is. In this case yesterday, it was straight up Cal Fire's jurisdiction because it's in the SRA and it's in the El Dorado County Fire Protection District. There was no U.S. Forest Service land was anywhere near where that fire was. I don't think there was any BLM land anywhere near there or anything along those lines. So that was a relatively simple decision yesterday on how we're going to organize that. It's a single command incident with Cal Fire.
Are you getting GPS data from cell phones? Somebody called you rather than landline phones?
Yeah.
Normally 911 would say my house is at.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
In your case, you're getting actual on the ground location.
Yep. Yep, and just anecdotally, this is a couple years ago, but I live over in Amarillo County. It was on the back half of where I live at, and actually pocket dialed 911 and heard them talk and answer the phone. They could tell me where I was standing next to the creek. They could see my dot on there. I'm like, nope, this is a pocket dial. Sorry, so no, that information is very accurate. So and real time as well. That technology is good and getting better and better and better as we.
This is not triangulation off the cell site.
This is off the device. Yeah, off the device. Yeah. If it's a cell phone, landline just goes to wherever address the landline is coming from. But this day and age, I don't know how many people use landlines anymore. I think probably 80% of our business is off of cell phones now and that kind of thing. So, okay, so the location is determined and ownership and jurisdiction is determined, and that happens very quickly. Like I said, the dots on the map, the dispatcher, the fire captain in this case will know that this fire is in the SRA, it's in the Cal Fire Direct Protection Area, and it's in the El Dorado County Fire Protection's local jurisdiction area. Not LRA where they have responsibility for the wildland piece of it, but it's in Tim's Fire District. So in this county, this is a little bit unique in this county. In some places, when jurisdiction is determined, that changes the dispatch. That the jurisdiction is determined first, and then based on what the answer to that question is what resources are dispatched. This county and Amarillo County are different. That it doesn't matter what that initial jurisdiction is. The dispatch is the dispatch. We're sending the closest resources, regardless of if it's a Forest Service patch, a Cal Fire patch, a County Fire patch, a Rescue Fire patch, whatever it is. The closest fire engines go to that call, regardless of anything else. That's a good thing. Over time, as people get there and we sort these things out, and in yesterday's case, we didn't catch it on the initial attack. We were there for 6 or 7 hours chasing that thing around yesterday. So we were there for a while. So after a while, those things kind of sort themselves out. What I mean by that is Cal Fire's got the responsibility for, that fire financially and all those things. So as this thing goes on and we have more time, we get more and more Cal Fire resources there. We can bring them in from other counties and some of those kind of things. And it's our responsibility. So over time, we get the Cal Fire folks in there. We can release the local government resources. They can go back and handle their local government mission kind of stuff. We can release the federal resources to go back to, the federal mission kind of stuff and that kind of thing. So that all happens with the determining the jurisdictional piece around it. That's just to get the right people there and determine who's going to be in charge. And unfortunately, the big argument is who pays the bill. That's always a big argument too. It's usually between him and I. So,
that's what I was gonna say. And like a good example yesterday is like the helicopters that were on scene yesterday. The first 4 helicopters that were on scene, one was a Cal Fire, the other 3 were federal.
Yeah.
Were our helicopters. So
Yep. And the first arriving chief officer will be the incident commander. And again, it doesn't matter if it's Cal Fire DC, it doesn't matter if it's Forest Service, one of Tim's guys. The first in company officer, chief officer, sets up the command structure, takes the IC. And again, over time, as things stabilize and we get the right people there, we transition so the right agency is in charge of the incident. But that happens at a convenient time for the response and for the actions on the ground. It's not just getting the jurisdictional person in charge is not a factor here. We need to get there eventually, but it's driven by the conditions at the incident.
Does this all operate under NIMS, the National Incident Management System? And at what point does that engage? I believe it's the Cal Fire. Incident management system.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So
who initiates it?
Who initiate? Can you maybe rephrase that?
At what point does you have an on-scene incident commander and you initiate the incident management system with all of the various responsibilities
right away
at the 911 call? Yep, no, that happens. If it's a vegetation fire, like if it's a structural fire, no. But for a vegetation fire, we don't always follow through all the time because we catch a lot of these fires and it's not necessary to activate the entire system. But from the time of the 911 call, IROC is getting opened up. The CAD will display pages of close resources, available resources, and all. So all those things are starting at the 911 call. All those things happen. Then kind of what is straight up conditions based is as the incident develops and all of those kind of things. If it's growing and getting bigger or bad and all those kind of things, then all those things we do initially are necessary. We're into IROC, which is the resource ordering system, and we're getting resources from other places and all those kind of things. And we have the ability to grow the incident as we need to. But if we catch the fire, we just shut off and it all just goes away. So, but yeah, so we start on the dispatch like this is going to be a thing that we're going to chase around for a while. We go big on all those things, and as soon as we don't need them, we shut them off. But our stance is everything comes on the initial dispatch, and we peel it off as we don't need it.
It's standardized. Follow this playbook.
Yep.
Curiosity, when you order air resources, who do you contact for that? I mean, you don't contact, for instance, Grass Valley to start a plane, do you?
Nope, that all comes through the command centers. So the aircraft ordering works very much the same way as ordering engines or hand crews or bulldozers or whatever else we're going to order. One of maybe the nuanced differences initially, and this is going to change next year, so it's not even sure next year. Right now, I don't have the ability to order my own aircraft on the initial dispatch because there's no aircraft in the Amarillo Eldorado unit.
Oh,
Meaning, so we go back into the GAC. So this is where the GAC, the Geographic Area Coordination Centers, come into play. They control the air resources in the northern region where we sit. So when we get a fire dispatch, it's a very quick thing. We're not going to do it next year, which is a good thing. We've got to call North Ops, tell them, hey, we got a fire here. We need X amount of aircraft. They tell us we're going to send you these aircraft, and then we have control of the aircraft. So it's a very quick thing. It happens in 2 minutes, something like that. But it's still a piece of the process that somebody has to go through. So that does happen in Camino. Camino will call the North Ops, which is in Reading there. And the people sitting in North Ops are the same people. They're Forest Service and CAL FIRE people. And they'll do the same thing. They're going to send us the closest aircraft, whether it's a CAL FIRE ship, a Forest Service ship, a local contract ship. It doesn't matter. We're getting the closest one.
Yeah, and the piece of that with the aircraft is there's engines we have hundreds of. Water dropping aircraft or aircraft that have crews with them. They got to start being tactical with where they're moving those chess pieces around the board. So if we need to grab five chess pieces off the board right now, they got to kind of figure out how to backfill and reshuffle so the state's still covered for initial attack.
IROC, it's not international race of champions.
It's not. Somebody tell me what IWAC stands for.
Camaro.
Yeah. Agency resource ordering. Coordination or something.
Yeah, it's a national database, a national program. So nationally, obviously, where all the wildland fire resources are entered into the IROC system. It maintains qualifications and all those kind of things. So if we're going to place an order for, we need 10 division group supervisors and 2 operations section chief and all those kind of things. all of those people are listed in IROC. And we go into IROC and we'll start making phone calls and start trying to get those people here. So IROC is really maybe not quite the most accurate description, but for lack of better things, like really a catalog of resources we have available to us and how to work with them. Does that sound accurate?
Yes. Resources and qualification, and like Mike was alluding to, it's also available nationally. So like right now on the forest, we have a covered task force. I've got a local government engine from Montana, 2 local government engines from Utah, a Forest Service Utah engine. So we've ordered stuff from all over. When we started to get that lightning, Northrop started sending us stuff, and I said, yeah, we could host it. And so we brought them in and used them on the course.
What is the role of Ogden in this?
The role of what?
Ogden, Utah, the National Fire, isn't that Ogden?
Boise.
Boise.
So NIFC, so the national, or so NIC. So there's NIFC and there's NIC. So NIC would be the driver of this. It's the National Interagency Coordination Center. So NIC oversees all of the GACs, all the geographic area command centers. So if let's say, for instance, we're ordering aircraft, and yesterday this fire starts to get away from us, and we need a lot of very large air tankers to start dropping a lot of retardant in places. Well, Northops are geographic, sorry. So our local geographic area command center might only have like 3 large air tankers. Then if we say we need 5, they're going to have to come up. Okay, we can send you 3. Then Northops is going to start reaching out to the other geographic command centers to see if they can give us any very large air tankers. But if they can't, then they'll reach to NIC, and NIC can reach out nationally to find more aircraft, resources, crews to send it all.
And that happened yesterday. The VLAP, I think it was the DC-10 that dropped at probably 5:30 last night on that thing, came out of Tucson.
Oh,
Yeah, it's funny because it takes like 45 minutes to get here and 45 minutes back, but yeah, keep them out of state. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, did you say that you move resources proactively even before an incident?
Absolutely.
And is that seasonally or under what conditions?
So it can be seasonally or it can be based on conditions. I believe earlier this year in January, like the Palisade Eaton fires that were down in Southern California, based on those conditions, they started to bring a lot of resources, state and fed, into the region with those wind events that were coming. And they ended up getting the fires, even with everything they brought in. Those were pretty devastating fires. We saw the forecast coming. So I think it was last Sunday night into Monday, you guys were probably all hearing the thunderstorms. I think there was over 1,800 strikes in Northern California. 700 of those hit the El Dorado National Forest. We only ended up with 2 fires out of it, but we were anticipating probably getting quite a few fires out of that. So we reached out, and Northrop started bringing in, reached out nationally and started bringing in some resources from out of the region. Hence, like Montana and Utah and all those engines. Like, hey, would you like to host them? I said, absolutely, I'll take more engines because I don't know what our fire situation is yet, but I know we got lit up. So we brought them in, and then we have some local captains that we put them under as a task force and paired them up. I hired on locally the Red Hawk crew. We brought them on a local agreement. Garden Valley, SWAT 51. I brought them on under a local agreement as well, just to make sure we had more adequate staffing should we start getting fires.
Yeah, and that's not unique to the wildland agencies too. The OES started doing that with local resources 5 or 6 years ago.
So we also partnered with Cal OES, who provides some funding for us for that same type of operation. It's called pre-positioning. And there's certain criteria they'll give us. There's a score sheet. It can be, if it's fire related, if there's wildland threat, flood, any type of mudslide, things of that nature. So if we look ahead, and in this county, there's 3 OES operator coordinators. I happen to be one of them. We'll look ahead and say, wow, it's going to be red flag coming up, winds and whatnot. We'll run through the score sheet, and if we qualify, we can submit to our OES region chief and say, hey, here's what we need. Here's what the predicted weather is going to be. Here's where our scores are. We want 5 additional engine companies, 2 water tenders, and 3 chief officers. That goes to state OES. They approve it. They provide the funding for us to upstaff those resources locally. And we do that multiple times a year. It's really become very I don't say popular, prudent is probably that we monitor that and upstaff probably 8 or 10 times a year locally.
Some question.
during a major fire, you'll see fire departments come from all over the state, sometimes from a city. I'm not sure Sacramento is a good example, but are these fire departments trained in wildland fires, and how do you use them?
Yes, and a lot. Cal Fire has, I think it's 343 fire engines across the state is what we have. Just going back to the Cal Fire here 4 or 5 years ago, I think we had 900 engines here. So obviously, Cal Fire does not have enough engines to handle any emergency like that of that magnitude when it's occurring by itself, let alone there's 2 or 3 of those things happening across the state. If you remember back to the Caliber fire, we also had the Dixie going at the same time. We did not have enough resources in California to effectively handle both of those things. So, but answer your question. And again, back to we're going to get some agreements here in a few minutes. But yeah, so there's an agreement. I'll cover it right now. There's an agreement out there that is managed by OES, and it's called the CFAA, the California Fire Assistance Agreement. And really, what that is OES facilitates the local government departments around the state and facilitates the process where they can contract or be hired by CAL FIRE or the Forest Service for our mission for wildland fire suppression, for structure defense, for those kind of things. So kind of swagging a number here, but on any given fire that's of any size, probably half to 60% of the resources that we have there are going to be from a local jurisdiction through a contract, whether it be locally or from LA County, wherever it's going to be throughout the state of California. That is a big part of the workforce we use on wildland fire. That's true for the Forest Service as well. We use the heck out of the local government firefighting boards in the state of California.
And that would be another name for mutual aid.
This one is not mutual aid. We'll talk about mutual aid in a few minutes. This is a fitness by hire. This is and it has to be this way. Mutual aid has its place in the state, and we'll talk about what the mutual aid system really is and that kind of thing. But for this particular thing, this has to be assistance by hire. We're asking these departments to let us have their fire engines, their people, their chief officers, those kind of things for our mission for 7 days at a time, 14 days at a time, 21 days at a time. We hire them. We pay the departments for their time and the resources and all that kind of thing. So the CFAA agreement is really an assistance by hire agreement where Cal OES kind of brokers that contract between the federal agencies, the wildland agencies, and the local governments across the state. And I think maybe back to your question that included the component on training and some of those kind of things. 100% yes. Especially over the last 10 or 15 years, we all know what the real wildland fires are a real problem in the state of California. And if they haven't been doing it before, which I think they were, the local agencies across the state have taken it upon themselves to make sure that they are trained and equipped and all those kind of things to handle the wildland fire emergencies in their jurisdictions and to be good partners for us too. So yeah, those things all happen. Yeah, we have more questions.
How new are these agreements you're describing? Did they exist 5 years or 10 years ago?
No, I don't know.
CFA and CFMA.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah, no, they're way older than 5 years. No, I'm thinking 25 or 30 years. They've been around for a long time. I don't know when they came to fruition, but they've been around for I started working at this department in 1994. They have been a staple of this department before that. So I don't know what year they really came into play, but they've been around for a long time. They've been in place for so long that I would say our culture is kind of driven by them, but how we operate together, those things have been dictated by these agreements, and that has been kind of become part of the operational fabric of these two agencies. So no, that the agreements have been around for a long time because they work. They're effective in getting resources to places and all of those kind of things. And like we built our operations around, and that's how we do business. It's a good thing. Okay, before we go to any more, is there anything else we want to talk about as far as like how resources are ordered or where they come from or any of those kind of things before we kind of maybe move on a little bit?
So CAL FIRE's air fleet, they are under North Ops. You can't order them.
I don't have direct control. Like I can't. Most of them are. We have air bases all over the state. There is one. This hurts me to say this. There's one in the Amarillo Dorado unit that, as it stands right now, I can't just dispatch them. That there's a control piece in the northern region that they. And it's rightfully so. I understand why they do it. The aircraft are a regional resource. They can be anywhere in the northern region in 35 or 40 minutes. I get why some of those things are in place. But again, that permission piece is 30 seconds. It's a quick piece of the phone call, and then we're online with those guys.
And we do the El Dorado National Forest. We do have the Type 2. So we have 2 helicopters inside here. So we have a Type 2, the staffed out of Pacific. That's the one that our helitat crew operates with its bucket and all that. And then we also have a Type 1 ship, which is a big water dropping ship. We typically don't see that thing because that thing gets committed to large fires and it goes. So that's a national resource that me as a local fire chief, I have no control over. I do have control locally over our helicopter 516 to dispatch as I need through things. But once again, if it's across the line and it's in Ken's area, it's a really quick phone call up. And if it's sitting on Pacific, it's just a quick call to, hey, can we use this aircraft? And then absolutely. And then we send it down the hill and they can use it.
That was the helicopter we had yesterday on this came out.
Yeah. And they happened to be in the air, I think, doing training when the fire broke. So they were already airborne and just flew straight over to it.
That's convenient. There were fires like that. That's all.
Anything else? Actually, let me talk on this real quick. So the thing I just described, we're going to fix that this winter through the command and control processes and that kind of thing. What changed some of this discussion is the C-130 program for CAL FIRE. So we have a couple of our C-130s online right now. They came online at the end of last year. We have 2 online now, and they're going to be more and more coming online as we go through this. One of them is going to be at McClellan. That's going to be the permanent home at McClellan in Sacramento, right down there. The way they fly and the amount of retardant they carry, they fly faster than the S2s, which is our smaller airplanes, our traditional fleet, and they carry 4 times the retardant that the S2s carry. And they're also qualified to be an initial attack aircraft, meaning that they don't have to have line supervision or an air attack event to go to a fire and drop on it. The pilots are firefighters that can drop on their own without any supervision. That's a good thing. This is a bureaucracy and tradition and all those kind of things that traditionally in CAL FIRE, for a lot of good reasons, the units have never had the ability to go get those aircraft directly on the dispatch. We're going to start doing that next year where when the aircraft are in McClellan, Camino can go straight to McClellan and get them dispatched to our fire steering unit. And that's a good thing. Just anecdotally, we had the C-130 on fire, I don't know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something along those lines. Didn't end up dropping. They were canceled in their route. But on their way back, they flew over a grass fire in Sacramento County, just on the way to land. Did a loop around it, put the whole thing out, and went and landed. They dropped their 4,000 gallons on a 6-acre fire, ended it before the fire engines were on scene. And so, no, those aircraft are a good thing. We want those aircraft in the county, in the air, that kind of thing. The fleet is getting bigger and bigger. That's a good thing.
What is the role of your
contractors in this? Whether it's like water tenders, I think, and bulldozers. A lot of these are private.
Yep. So kind of going back to that resource discussion again. We have the 345 engines or whatever it is, but I think statewide we probably have 50 bulldozers, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood. CAL FIRE doesn't own a single water tender. So there is a massive workforce that we need for these fires, or we need to staff with 3,000 and 4,000 people, and we need 300 fire engines, and we need 100 bulldozers, and those kind of things. So yeah, a lot of that comes out of private industry in a good way. So CAL FIRE has a system called HEMS. It's Hired Equipment Management System, I think is what it stands for. The federal government has one called Viper. They do the exact same thing. What it is it's a platform for people that own equipment that want to be part of this, can sign their equipment up through the system, and we go out and inspect them and make sure their equipment is good and they're qualified to operate and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, once they're in that system, we use them all summer long. So again, kind of making up a number right now, but probably 50%, maybe higher than that, of like the bulldozers and that kind of stuff you see on these fires are privately owned equipment with private operators that we've hired to come do the workforce. So we just don't have the capacity to put 100 bulldozers out there. We don't want it. We don't want to have 150 bulldozers sitting around for 2 years and we only need them for 2 weeks every other year or something along those lines. So there's a reason we don't have massive fleets of these things. And the same is true with the water tenders. We don't have a single water tender, so almost all the water tenders come either from local fire agencies who do own them or private contractors again. And that's a good system for us. It's a good system for the Forest Service. And it's good for people out there. People have made jobs and careers out of, coming and fight fires for us. It's a good system and necessary. Okay. One more question there. What's next?
I don't know if this is the appropriate question, but let me go ahead. Reading a lot lately about companies they want to come out to your home and they want to put retardant on my home and they say it will last for the whole season and my home won't burn. There's other products that are coming onto the market. Will you be speaking at some point how homeowners or products could help fire?
Yeah, I can real quick. That wasn't part of what we're going to kind of talk about today, but in general, yes. As the wildfire problem in the state has just exploded, if you will, in the last 10 or 15 years, there's been really good response to this. State government has responded, local governments have responded, federal governments has responded. And the part that I don't think we've completely tapped into yet is how the private industry side of things has responded. There are all kinds of things out there on the technology side of things as far as detection, and the ideas coming to us right now from the private side are mind-boggling, how big they are and how good they are, and some of those kind of things. So the things that you're talking about, I think there's value in some of those things, and they're going to get better as time goes by, and people learn how to make better products and how to apply them better and apply them in more effective situations and those kind of things. So I don't think those things are the panacea right now. Those things are going to fix the problem and all those kind of things. But I'm encouraged by those things because at some point in time, as people invest, time and energy and those kind of things to solving issues, someone's going to come up with something that's really going to work for us. And so I'm not discouraging on those things at all. I don't know, having a private company come and put retardant on your house, is that going to save your house from a wildfire? I don't know. I don't know.
What?
Referring to Komodo.
I don't recall. I'm sorry, I don't recall. And then I was just thinking, do they do that ahead of time, or are they coming out like right when they figure out a fire's in the immediate area, and then they're going to cause problems with Cal Fire airplanes?
But there's something called Komodo. I ran across it. It's a chemical you buy to keep your house with a sprayer. First warning of it, put it on a fire hose, spray it.
We have a limited time for the panel, sort of operational fire protection. So let's.
Are we able to take another question?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of your presentation, but I had a lot of questions about rave and evacuation decisions and that sort of stuff. Is that now or should?
Look at that.
Yes. That's good to say that. No, I don't know.
What a segue.
So we'll talk a little bit about the local evacuation process. So first and foremost, cooperation and coordination with law enforcement and fire agencies in our county. I think Chief Blankenheim can probably say that throughout the state, it's not, I don't think, as well oiled as it is here. In El Dorado County, the Sheriff's Office, all the fire districts, CAL FIRE, we all work together, train together, prepare together. We're on several committees that bring us together multiple times a month. And we trust each other. So when we show up to a fire where I might be the law IC and he's the fire IC, which neither one of us are going to take that role generally, but we all know each other. So when we show up there, we know how each other operates, we know how we've trained, and we know how we've prepared to handle that fire when it comes to they're dealing with the fire and we're dealing with the evacuation. So it's a very seamless process here. Crozer Fire, for example, last year, I did a presentation on evacuation safety out there. The CAL FIRE battalion chief was there giving the CAL FIRE part of that. And then a couple weeks later, when we were evacuating Mosquito, he was the fire incident commander, and I was on the law side. So we had just talked about evacuating Mosquito, a couple weeks prior. So the training portion and the collaboration between our agencies is pretty much constant year round now, and that really helps. In El Dorado County, any rank of sheriff's office employee can call for an evacuation, and we'll get into how that's played out. But some counties need a person of rank, a sergeant, lieutenant, in some counties the sheriff himself. We don't do that here because we don't want there to be a delay. So whatever rank that sheriff's office staff is that's out there standing next to the fire IC, if the fire IC says you should evacuate this area, that person has the authority to immediately do that. So I think that's important. Sometimes when it's a matter in those situations. So law enforcement at the incident command post. So as the chief mentioned, the 911 call comes to us first, we transfer it to them. As soon as we get that call, we also dispatch sheriff deputies, and that's a code 3 licensed sirens response. So we get the call as wildfire, our dispatchers send deputies to that location, transfer the call to them. And that's because obviously we have a role of evacuations. So we need to be there as soon as possible. Initially, it's a patrol deputy. The deputies you see out working patrol, they go to the fire and command post first because they're in the field. They're going to be the closest. All of our deputies in the field that just work regular patrol, they all get training every year from my team, OES, that I'll get into in a minute, on how to do evacuations. So it starts with patrol going there, standing next to the fire commander saying, what do we need regarding evacuations? Then my team will respond out. If it's off duty or from our office, we'll go to the command post. So as I mentioned, I manage the Office of Emergency Services. In El Dorado County, OES, Office of Emergency Services, under the Sheriff's Office. So it's a division of the Sheriff's Office. And that's important because we're responsible primarily for preparedness, response, and recovery for all disasters. Obviously, in our county, fires are the most major ones. So I have a team of 7 very highly trained and skilled people who focus mostly on fires and evacuations. So if you have a county that's not the case, you're relying solely on patrol deputies who do have training. But here we have a team of 7 that has a very high level of training on how to carry that out. So patrol first and my team after that. Is anybody, so you mentioned Ray. You all signed up for Ray? I'm hoping every single person. No? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say yes, so we're doing a good job. What about perimetermap.com? Does everybody know about perimetermap.com? Yeah? Yeah? Some? All right. That's good. That's better than many of them, right? So we've had Rave for a couple of years. We used to have Code Red. If you don't know, we migrated from Code Red to Rave. If you were in Code Red before, we put your information into Rave. That's the alerting system that will call you, text you, and email you if we send an alert. Perimetermap.com is a website for the public. It's a one-stop shop for information you need in an emergency. It's going to show you evacuation zones, under warning, under an order, evacuation routes, shelters, all the stuff you need. It's a public-facing website. There's no sign-up. You just go to perimetermap.com during the fire. If you were on that website yesterday, you would have saw all the red evac orders and warnings and routes and the sheltering out steps. So we didn't have anything like that in this county before. You'd kind of have to go to social media or our website to see a GIS created map. It was kind of hard to read. So perimetermap.com is a really good, I think, improvement in that area. Any questions about those? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so yesterday's event, I was actually traveling home from Southern California and trying to figure out what was going on. And I noticed the perimeter map showed yellow, which was the warning to evacuate. Should I also have received something through Rave? I'm trying to figure out how Rave, when and how Rave is activated, what I should expect to be seeing in an event. So I'm, also trying to educate the public. We always tell them to sign up for Rave, but I want to understand what they should be seeing and when they should be seeing it.
Yes. So we're standing next to the fire and commander. We're on our tablet drawing in perimeter where we're going to put an evac order or warning, right? So we're drawing that in perimeter. When that's finalized, we both agree this is the area that's going to be under an order and warning. We copy you essentially copy it from perimeter and you paste that into Rave, and it will send an alert to those same areas, right? So this circle that's in perimeter, that same circle in Rave is going to send an alert. So if you live and you're registered and your number is updated, all these things that sometimes don't occur when you don't get the Rave alert, if that's all true and you were in the red or yellow, yes, you should have got a Rave alert saying you're in a warning order.
Okay. So it doesn't matter if I was physically not there, it should have alerted me. So the fact that I didn't get an alert means I need to go in and check and see what went wrong.
Yes,
okay,
yeah, exactly. And call or email my team if there's something wrong. I would say 98% of the time, it's that people haven't updated their address or their phone number or their email.
So similar question, the Amber Fire that happened right at our doorstep 4 days ago. And I was getting calls from neighbors, what's going on? Rave didn't beep. And we were telling them, download this, here's the app, that kind of thing. And for myself, I never got a notification from there. So 2 questions. One is it only if there's an evacuation order that initiates a Rave alert? And the other is who we call when we have technical problems, because mine is not functioning, yours isn't either. And I went through and I'm in sort of a technology hell where yes, we have your username, yes, we have your phone number, but you can't log in, go away, reset your password. It's one of those things. So is there a tech support for that?
Yeah, so call my office. We'll make sure you have a flyer, and one of my staff will either walk you through it or, well, you have our number, hopefully. So call us and we'll walk you through it. If not, we'll go in the back line through Rave. Like I said, Rave has over 100,000 people signed up, and we do have problems here and there. It's generally a very reliable system. As far as the Amber Fire, so that fire, deputies made it on scene and did door-to-door notifications before we sent the Rave alert. Did you get a deputy come to your door? The one a couple days ago?
No,
So- I'm talking about the one you asked about. So, yeah, so deputies were on scene on that fire before we could send the Rave alert out. And they did go door to door to everybody who was placed under an evacuation order. So the fire may have been close to you, but if no deputy came to your door and you didn't get an alert, that means I wasn't there, but that would generally mean that you weren't under the evacuation order.
It's one of those things where everybody's calling me because I'm supposed to know something about fire.
Yeah, so I mean, you might be 2 streets over, but still, you're not going to get a call at your door or an alert unless you're under order or warning. Yeah, so if it's enough for us to come to your door, it's going to be a warning or an order. And generally, as most agencies in our county, we don't have just extra staff to do things that are not required during emergencies, right? We're pretty strapped for staff, so they're only going to visit you if we need you to leave.
Because we're telling them to watch duty. That's local. Getting information.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you're on watch duty. There's no disconnect, but I'll try to cover that briefly. So, perimetermap.com is going to tell you evac orders, warnings, routes, shelters, right? You can always go to that. That's an easy one. Rave is going to call you, text you, email you. It's also going to have information from us, which route we want you to use, where the shelter's at, stuff like that. Rave is also where we're going to send you an alert when you can go home. Watch duty is also a good tool to be notified when there's a fire, right? Watch duty, all it tells you is there's a fire here. And it does pick up all of our information. We've actually signed watch duty out to get all of our alerts we send. So every Rave alert we send, watch duty gets it. But they tell you certain information. So fire starts, watch duty just says there's fire. By the time what we have to do to send you a Rave alert is we have to get there, determine there is a fire, determine there's evacuation orders needed, type it up and send it to you. So watch duty, my team, we have all three. Have watch duty, have signed up for Rave, and have perimeter. Watch duty will tell you earlier, and if you want to leave based on what you see on watch duty, because you don't feel safe, then by all means leave. All we ask is don't go home because watch duty says the fire is under control, and that's when Rave is important. We'll get into repopulation, I think, another slide, but all three are great to have, and they all have valuable information. You will get a watch duty alert sooner because it's just saying there's a fire here. For us to send you an alert, there's a lot more work we have to do. Yeah. Any more?
I'm Lieutenant Morton. My name is Bruce Dixon. I live in Rancho del Sol. Been in the Fire Safety Council system for quite a while. And one thing I have learned is that we have to go over this information again and again and again. So you're in for a long summer season because most of us in the Fire Safety Council system are having emergency evacuation meetings this summer. And I think a few of your folks have been invited to join. So please be patient when these questions keep coming. But I have run into, including yesterday, grand confusion over perimeter and how it works. So I'm just warning you, you're going to get this. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, my team does 1 to 2 events every single week from about March through June. So yes, and we don't mind questions. We know the questions. It means people are engaged and knowing and wondering about the website.
So perimeter and Rave, they're basically separate kind of companies.
They're a separate thing. Perimeter is just a website that the company created for our county that we update to reflect orders, warnings, routes. Rave is the alerting. So Ray is going to call you, text you, email you. Perimetermap.com is a website you can go to see what all that's about.
So what kind of contract obligations do each of those companies have with?
So we pay Perimeter every year annually for a subscription for them to maintain that website. Ray is provided for free from Calabash.
So absolutely not criticism, so don't take it like that. I've noticed, is it my imagination or is OES becoming more aggressive on evacuation orders and warnings? Having lived in the county for a bunch of years and had fires pretty darn close to this to me, where I think I probably should have been evacuated in the past, but I wasn't.
So I would say in the last 5 years, especially after Caldor, we all trained together a lot more, and we've all come to the conclusion that in this county, we're going to evacuate you earlier, maybe than a lot of counties. That's due to the narrow roadways. That's due to one-way and one-way outs. That might be due to the fuels that they say are dangerous. In El Dorado County, yeah, you very well might be evacuated earlier than other counties that don't have the same fire risk and evacuation route problems that we have. And last year there was some criticism about that you got evacuated and the fire didn't come through and you got to go home. As long as we evacuate you safely, it is an inconvenience to get evacuated. The fire professionals are very good at telling where that fire is going and how fast it's going to get there, but nothing is 100%. So we're going to play it safe and evacuate early. I just will say, if it's an evacuation order, it means someone, a law incident commander and a fire incident commander have decided we think your life is at risk and leave now. So while we may be doing it early, an evacuation order means we think you're at risk, we've agreed, and it's time to leave.
So kind of building on that, the evacuation planning process and the repopulation and all those kind of things. And this is both a good thing and probably an unfortunate thing. But this is one of those things that was not created like in a classroom or in a lab or any of those kind of things. This was created at base camps around the state because in the last 10 or 15 years, we have been doing this time and time again in communities all across the state. So these processes and these trigger points and decision points on when to evacuate and repopulate, a lot of those things have come out of a decade of experience of doing these things time and time again. It happens here in this county, it happens in every other county in the state. And on the evacuating early piece and the part about the fire professionals and the law enforcement professionals, from the firefighting side of things, I think we've all kind of paid attention to what's happened in the state in the last 10 years with fire conditions and all of those kind of things. The drought conditions that hit the state in 2012 or 13, where it persisted for 7 or 8 or 9 years, changed the fire behavior in the state of California. It's still changed today to a degree that we had a hard time getting our head around. We have fire indexes that were created back in the 1970s that have decades and decades of fire occurrence data related to fire spread potential and all of those kind of things that our fire behavior analysts use that data and those models to predict where fires are going and all of those kind of things. What we found starting about 2017 is that data was out the window. Our fire predictions didn't matter anymore. The fuel conditions had changed that much where 30 or 40 years of data of consistent fire behavior was out the window. And this is a very unfortunate thing to say, but we somewhat lost our ability to predict how fast the fire was going to travel in a certain period of time. And the result of that is evacuation orders got early and got bigger, and they're still there today. I understand the impact of the communities and all those kind of things behind them, and as technologies and all those kind of things get better and our experiences get better, we want to shrink those in. We don't want people out of their homes and those kind of things. We understand that it is that thing that is probably the biggest impact on the community, short of losing your home itself, but being out of your home and some of those kind of things. That is the biggest impact of the community when these things go through there. So there's full understanding on that. But just please understand that the conditions around us have changed drastically in the last 6 or 7 years, and we are still reacting and still catching up to those condition changes.
By the way, it was not criticism.
No. We didn't take it as that at all. But that's a real question, and there's a real answer to that question. It is, people see it out there, and I think it's a good explanation to give that there are real environmental conditional things that changed in the last bunch of years that have changed how we do some of these business items, and there are real impacts to the people. And it's a great question. Being able to talk about these things with a group like this is a good thing. So I really appreciate the question. Good stuff.
Okay. Kind of follow on to that. based on yesterday's experience and other recent experience, as we're out talking to the public about getting ready for evacuations, what are some big do's and more don'ts? Like what sort of things should the public know not to do or to do better? Kind of congestion, choke points in the process that you see are popping up over and over again that we can help educate on.
Well, here's some key points. So CAL FIRE has Ready Set Go. We have something similar on our website. You can check that for just that's an easy way to go to. So the 5 things we would push out, we've already talked about though. Sign up for rave, bookmark perimeter, have watch duty, have a go bag, and no. This is actually a problem we see a lot. Take 5 minutes out of one day to know the evacuation routes out of your house. If you have 1 route or 2 route or 3 routes, there's a lot of people moving into the area from out of town. This county, I'm born and raised here. I've been here my whole life. There's a lot of back roads that maybe aren't on Google Maps yet. Just take a few minutes to know your evacuation route. It's a life safety issue. The last thing is just only get information from trusted sources. So during a fire, CAL FIRE, El Dorado County Fire District, CHP, those are your trusted sources. Our PIOs spend just as much time trying to correct misinformation as they do putting out real information. And that's not because people are trying to do that to cause trouble, but there's just rumors, and we know social media, as everybody knows. So trusted sources during emergencies. Yeah. Anything else? No. Next slide. Oh, sorry.
Do you see the community radio system, whatever it's called, as a trusted source?
Yes, so we have some people here from Sierra and GMRS. So they follow information. We were working to figure out how that we could connect those local radio systems to our rave system, but there was no one point of contact like we have with Watch Duty. But they pick up these systems. There's people here that can speak more to it offline, but those small radio systems in these communities, I think, are very valuable and get information out. And I know a lot of people in that world, and they're picking up information straight from either perimeter, our website, or the radio traffic. So, and at the end of the day, if you leave and you didn't have to, but you're alive, then that's okay. Any other questions? All right, do we go to the next slide?
One more. So, one more thing. Just thinking about yesterday, I know a friend of mine was trying to get in to help her son load up stuff to get out at a block, and I'm sure that happens all the time. How I try to tell people when I'm out educating the public that when a fire happens, that is too late to plan your escape. The roads will be blocked. You will not be getting in, especially in our very narrow neighborhood where we are. How else should we try to paint that picture for folks when we're educating them out there?
It's exactly what you're saying. If the area is closed, the last thing we're going to do is let more people in when we're trying to get everybody out. In addition to fire trucks and first responders and law enforcement. In addition to when we evacuate an area, we could put cops in there to do security, so we know that their homes aren't getting broken into. So yeah, we're not going to let anybody in a closed area for an evacuation order. That's like I said, if we put an evacuation order in, that means someone from law and fire thinks your life's at risk. So we're not. Yeah, I'm not going to put that.
We have. Yes. Okay. Oh, maybe one more.
With regard to evacuations, as you're well aware, we've got lots of those long, narrow, substandard roads in this county, oftentimes with locked gates in the middle of them. I've talked enough with fire personnel, oh yeah, we'll send out people to unlock those gates in that event, but it seems to me that what you're going to be doing is allocating those resources to fight fire, not go unlock gates. How are we as people who are evacuating in these communities just carry bolt cutters and take it upon ourselves in terms of evacuation?
Sure, for that too. So one thing I guess I didn't mention, when we're deciding on evacuation orders and warnings, we're also deciding on routes. And so we're going to be looking at our iPads, what are the routes out? And the point is, yes, to catch things like that. There's a fire gate here. Law and fire both have a similar Knox key. And if not, all the cops have bolt cutters too. So if there's a neighborhood that gate needs to be open, one of us, yes, would open it. And that discussion would happen when we're setting the evacuation routes. We put the routes at perimetermap.com. We put them in the rave alert. So we would make sure those are open. Not to say if it's happened to you, and not to say it could never happen. Yes, that is how it would go.
Okay, so moving on a little bit. So we've already talked about some of these things a little bit, kind of in previous conversations, but kind of talk about the three main agreements that kind of drive how we work together and how we share resources and order resources and all those kind of things. So the first one we've touched on already, but hit it again here, is the CFAA, the California Fire Assistance Agreement. And that really is the one that is between the forest fire agencies, which are primarily CAL FIRE and the U.S. Forest Service, and OES, who represents the local firefighting agencies around the state of California. And again, what this is a mechanism for the wildland agencies to contract with OES to get resources to our instance is really what it is. Anything else you want to add to that one, Tim?
And Chief Burndown's correct. This is our mechanism as local government to work through Cal OES on our behalf. And for the incident relief for Chief Blankenheim's crews and the Forest Service management teams, what that does, it takes all of your local government agencies that are responding to assist and puts us all on the same sheet of music. Because all of us have individual labor contracts, and some fire departments, their employees get this and their employees get that. When you go out underneath the CFA agreement, you're working underneath Cal OES, working for the Forest Service or Cal Fire. But for those teams, incident management teams, we're all playing by the same sheet of music. We understand that if we're back home, we might be afforded these things or those things. But when we go out underneath the CFA agreement, here's the playbook, here's the contract or the MOU that all of our personnel operate. So it really just helps streamline the system.
What's that? Yeah. So let me just say this about these three agreements here right now too. The question came up before, how long have these been in place and that kind of thing. I don't know the exact answer, but decades they've been in place here. I'll say this, and I think this is a true statement that the fire service in California would not work the way it does without these three agreements being in place and being acted upon by the agency's partner. These agreements are crucial to the operations in California. That's kind of why we're talking about them today. So the CFMA, that's the one that kind of dictates how wildland fire agencies order resources, share resources, and all of those kind of things. The whole title of it is the California Master Cooperative Wildland Fire Management and Stafford Act Response Agreement. CFMA comes into that. So over the years that thing has grown a whole bunch. The whole Stafford Act response things. I don't get into that piece of it that much. You may know about that, but that has to do with presidential declarations and a lot of those kind of things because the federal government is signatory to this, that's part of the agreement. But the bulk of the agreement is how the federal agencies work with the state agencies in the wildland fire arena. It defines the direct protection areas that we talked about early on. It talks about how we're going to have agreements with each other. It talks about how we're going to do fire prevention, how we're going to do fire suppression, how we're going to share costs of wildland fires, how we're going to work together if a wildland fire crosses our jurisdiction, is burning on both forest and CAL FIRE's area. It covers the whole gamut of things, and has been in place for a long time. It's currently going under a rewrite right now. Hopefully something else comes out and we get this new agreement back by the end of the year, but we'll see what's happening with some of the executive order stuff that came out of there too. So yeah, like any agreement, it works on paper and it can lead to some frustrations and some of those kind of things. It's not a perfect document, not by a long shot, but at the end of the day, it's been around for 40 or 50 years, and it has really kind of developed the way that the fire service in the wildland arena operates in California. It's a different system than most of the country, and I think a more efficient, more collaborative system than the rest of the country because our needs are different. So
yeah, and because we've all been raised in it too, it just helps with our reciprocity. Like our fire agents are free to each other for 24 hours. Yeah. So we don't even worry about, like when you guys were asked, how quick does billing come into it? If we're just sharing fire engines, we really don't worry about it for that first 24 hours because we already have an agreement in place that I'm paying for my stuff, he's paying for his stuff. Doesn't matter what side of the fence we're on. We're all just going to send our stuff, deal with the problem. Once it goes past 24 hours, then we'll start shaking out who's going to start paying. But things like that, and sharing aircraft, sharing crews, sharing our dozers, everything's all built in.
And then the last one on here, California Master Mutual Aid Agreement. And this includes everybody. Cal Fire is signatory to it. No, the Forest Service.
No, not
Probably not that one. But Cal Fire is, and I think if not all, 99% of the local agencies in the state of California are signatory to this. And this truly is mutual aid. There is no assistance for hire to this one. This is truly, if your neighbor's having a problem, we can send resources over and vice versa, and everybody's agreeing we're just doing that. That's the right thing to do. Some of those kind of things. I think there is also a 24-hour free period maybe in that, or maybe there's not. There's no reimbursement period on this, right?
Just an example of that with the fire that we had yesterday across the street. Obviously, this county, our resources along with Cal Fire and Forest Service were a drawdown dealing with that fire. We were able to reach out to Sacramento County and said, hey, can you send us a couple of engines to come up and backfill some of our stations because we're on drawdown. They sent up 2 or 3 engines to backfill some of our stations. They're here for 2, 3, 4 hours maybe, and then they turn around and go home. There's no expectation that there's going to be billing or reimbursement. It's truly just mutual aid. It's partners next door need help. They send us some engines when they need help. We'll send them engines.
Yeah, there was a Sacramento engine covered in Cameron Park yesterday afternoon. That's how that works.
Forest Service and Forest Service engine cover in Pilot Hill, Cal Fire Station.
Mutual aid. Here we are. When we have these engines from Sacramento, let's say, coming up and covering fill in the blank, El Dorado County. What I've always noticed or thought is the worst case scenario is that these people don't know where your house is. They don't know where your road is. They don't know where the narrow parts. They're not familiar with all of this. Because I've always had my neighbors go, oh, well, then, you know, in 19 whatever, there was 10 engines in my yard. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen today. But do we actually see that that's a problem, or how's that pan out? And you know, with modern mapping, that's the good news.
Yes.
Okay, but 10 years ago, when we didn't have those nice things to work with, it was a big concern. And where does it shake out today?
Yeah, I think there's for me, I think there's no question about it that local resources who live here, work here, operate here every day are the resources that you want in the fire station. And there's no question about that. But at the end of the day, those are also the resources you want going when the fire starting right down the street. That you don't want to wait for the people to come further away. So there may be some local nuances and things like that the Sacramento engine may not be aware of in Cameron Park, or the El Dorado Hills engine may not be aware of, but they're covering up in Camino or something along those lines. But at the end of the day, the community of Cameron Park still has an engine company with 3 people on it. One of them is a paramedic, you know, all those kind of things servicing their community for a fire or medical aid or anything like that may come because the system is working and the people that are normally in their community are now helping out this other community right next door. And they're going to come back as soon as they're done with it. They'll be back in 4 or 5 hours. But for those periods of time, that is truly the neighbor helping neighbor piece of these things. And you asked a great question. We have had challenges with that in the past. There was a couple cover resources here during the Caldor fire that came out of some very small fire departments in the middle of the state that we sent home. They just did not have the ability to operate in this county. So straight up. So no, and you do see all flavors of fire service in the state. You get the highly professional staff places all the way down to the volunteer companies who don't have any resources whatsoever. So that it's a real thing. But in my opinion, I guess for the overall health of the system and how we do things, especially here in this county, those are things we're willing to accept. And if we get a substandard resource coming in, we can work with them, we can get rid of them, we can trade them out, we can do all those things. That's a real thing. That's a consequence of moving resources around the state constantly, and I think a necessary consequence. None of this is unsettling. All of this is unsettling, I should say. Yeah. Any questions on the agreement piece of things? There's a whole bunch to these. These agreements are, the CFMA is 80 pages long or something like that. The CFMA is so there's a lot to them. They're very nuanced and a lot of those kind of things. But at the end of the day, the purpose of them is very simple, and that is to make sure that everybody in the state that has firefighting resources is engaged in the firefighting problem in the state. That's really what these agreements are for. They've been incredibly effective over the past 30 or 40, 50 years, however long they've been around for. So. Yes, sir.
Do you expect the new CWPP to affect any of your operational planning?
Operational planning, probably not. Well, let me rephrase that. When I think about operational planning, that's our upstaffing and how we allocate resources and all of those kind of things. What the CWPP is going to do is, I'm hoping, is going to enhance the way we do the fire prevention planning, those kind of things, with the pre-planning part of it, which in turn over time does impact the way we do operations in a good way. So the idea is to get the CWPP in place, let it be effective with getting money into communities, projects completed, and those kind of things. And again, over time, as these things get done, we adjust where we allocate resources based on work that's been done before and some of those kind of things. So there is operational impact, but it's maybe not direct, and it's down the road a little bit. The CWPP, the way this county is going about it, Amazon County is actually mirroring what this county is doing, because it's good. So I'm looking forward to seeing that product go back and come out. I'm excited about that product.
So that slide we want to talk about is just a little bit of how that works for all of us here locally. And we mentioned, a lot of mutual aid and those type of things, strike teams and whatnot. But here locally in this county, we have an automatic aid system that's a drop boundary system. And what that means is that the chiefs that were, would have been sitting at this table long before we were sitting here, they came up with the agreement that's been carried out over the years, decades now, where the agreement is that the closest fire engine, the closest resource, will always respond to the incident when somebody calls 911. It doesn't matter jurisdiction. It doesn't matter if they're crossing over into somebody else's fire district boundaries or whatnot. The closest engine will always be the engine that responds, which is a great thing for us. I live in this county as well. It's a great thing knowing that if something were to happen in my house, I know the closest fire engine is going to respond, and not getting hung up over the jurisdiction as to like, well, I live in El Dorado County Fire, so send me one of their engines. Because I truly believe that none of us would care if you called 911 which engine showed up. Whether it says County Fire on it, Diamond Springs on, Cal Fire Force, it does not matter. You call 911, you get an engine. If it's a multi-engine response, you may get a mix match of the closest engines may be local government, Forest Service, Cal Fire, but you're always going to get those closest resources. And that doesn't happen everywhere. That is not a common practice. As much as it seems like it just makes sense, like why would you not do that? That does not happen. There are agencies and counties up and down the state where this is, county fires district, and you don't come in here unless we ask for you. And that's just a disservice to the community as far as I'm concerned. When one of my residents calls 911, I want the closest fire engine to get there and answer their need. So that is a tremendous benefit that we have in this system. And it all kind of filters back to that, as Chief Lincoln was mentioning about the emergency command center we have in Camino, that all the players are dispatched out of that same dispatch center. So they can see based on the ADL, the vehicle locators within all the rigs, the computer automatically says this engine is closest to where the 911 call is coming in at. So having all that centralized, it's not, when I started in this county just a couple of years ago, some of the fire districts were dispatched by the sheriff's department, central dispatch. Some of them were dispatched by Camino. And so I started on ambulance out in Pleasant Valley, and if we went to a call out in Pioneer south of us, we would come on the radio to central dispatch, and Camino or Central Medic 10 responding to Pioneer, switching to Camino. And we'd switch to a different dispatch center, have to tell them that's what we're doing. Now all of that has been consolidated into one dispatch center that controls everything. A tremendous benefit to the end user, which is all of us that live here in this county. And again, that's local governments, Forest Service, Cal Fire, all of us working together to get that closest resource to the incident. When we get into unified command, as Troy mentioned earlier, OES through ESO is part of that. They are always at the incident command post, whether it be a wildland fire, some type of large, commercial structure fire, something of that nature, flooding, any of those type of significant impacts to the communities. we're all at the same tailgate, if you will, at the back of the pickup truck, working collaboratively, working together with what do we need from the sheriff's department, what do they need from us, and it doesn't matter what patch, what uniform you're wearing. We're all there with a common cause, which again, for the end user, which is all of us that live here, that's a tremendous benefit. And then just touching on the last little bullet point on there, that again, going back to the command center that we have with Camino, that's a single point ordering system. So any of the resources that we need, we just contact one dispatch center, which is Camino, and they can place those orders and get us whatever we need. So that's kind of where that's Troy. Anything on?
No, I don't, we touched on unified command, but because of the questions, it was in this slide later. But to sum it up, the fire service obviously has the expertise where we need to evacuate, but the authority is with the sheriff's office, and that's why we talk a lot about this unified command. It's not like this everywhere, but I'm not just going to decide based on my tiny bit of knowledge about a fire where to put an evacuation order. I'm going to rely on professionals. Goes back to the relationships and the training and all that. But that's how that works. It's not the fire service putting the order in, it's us. We're just relying on their expertise. I did want to mention on this topic because it gets brought up after a fire a lot is repopulation. Letting you back into the closed area. It comes up after we have an incident where there's destroyed homes. Repopulation is not necessarily going to happen because the fire is out. And again, it's a team of people, us, fire, and when it's repopulation, it's also utility districts, the water, roadways. This whole team has to come together and decide it's safe to let people back in. So you haven't seen smoke for a couple of days. It looks like the fire's been out and we're not letting you back in. Like the chief said, we want to get you back in. That's the whole purpose. As soon as we get you out, we start talking about when we're getting you back in. That's one of our priorities. But it takes a whole team to include. There's no power lines down, roadways are safe, the water is safe to drink, there's no more hotspots. All these factors that we all agree it's now safe for any resident. If you had a wife or kid, that you would let them walk through there by themselves. So repopulation takes a while, sometimes as long. Especially when there's a lot of destruction. But it's for a reason. It's not that it's something we're not considering or thinking about.
Yeah, Chief Cordero, I live in like the northern limit of the county, and it's conceivable we could have a fire where the closest fire engine could be one from Auburn in Placer County. Do you have a similar agreement with them that they would bring in firefighting equipment?
Yes, we do, and you'll see that frequently. Unfortunately, we have a lot of water rescues down at the confluence, and you don't know which side. So, engine 72, and a lot of times the Cal Fire engines will get dispatched along with units from Placer County to mitigate those calls.
Yeah, and to take that one step further, the CAD systems in here and the CAD system in the Nevada Yuba Placer unit are linked. So there's not even any phone calls anymore across the border. If there's a wildland fire in the confluence up there on the El Dorado County side, we put the call together, dispatch and all those kind of things. And as the dispatch is going out, the NEU resources are getting dispatched at the same time. So there's no phone. It's that quick of a system anymore. So it's a good thing, and it's getting better as we go through time. Okay. Next slide. Okay, a couple slides left here. So one of the questions we wanted to answer today is coming up is kind of like, some of the tools we have. What do the agents do? How do we type them, and some of those kind of things. So yeah, just have a quick conversation about that. And again, if you guys have questions about specific tools we use or equipment, about fire away and fire away. So we'll start with the fire engines. So again, everything in the fire service is typed out. So we have acronyms for everything and types for everything and all of those kind of things. In general, a type 1 something is the biggest one we've got. So a type 1 engine is a big fire engine. A type 1 helicopter is a big helicopter. A type 1 airplane is a big airplane, so on and so forth down there. So really when we talk about type 1 engines, what we're talking about are engines that are designed for more of like municipal style firefighting. They have big pumps, big water, big hoses, extrication equipment, ladders, a lot of those kind of things on it. They're made for structure fires and vehicle accidents and medical aids and a lot of those kind of things. But like we talked about earlier, everybody in California has also equipped their engines with at least some complement to help fight wildland fires. But the primary responsibility of the Type 1 fire engines is that municipal piece of firefighting. Then as you go down the line there, the engines get smaller and smaller and more specific. So what CAL FIRE has is Type 3 engines, and they're getting bigger as we go through time. But the Type 3 engines are really designed for the wildland fire mission. They're shorter wheelbase, they're higher ground clearance. Almost all of them are four-wheel drive anymore. They don't carry the great big pumps and the big like LDH, like big water supply hose. We carry more of the 1.5-inch hose that we put on hose lays and a lot of those kind of things. The tool complement is chainsaws and rakes and shovels and those kind of things made for the wildland fire environment. So it's a little bit smaller engine, and its purpose is very different than like the municipal style Type 1 engines. And that's what CAL FIRE primarily has, are those Type 3 engines. And then kind of all the way down. I don't really know what Type 4s and 5s are, but you want to talk about those? Type 6.
So as far as California is concerned for the Forest Service, we're right alongside CAL FIRE. The Type 3 engines are designed for wildland fire and mainly wildland urban interface. Those trucks are designed to work in and around structures, bounce in and off forest roads, do whatever we need to do to protect houses and put the fires out. So how many did you have? 343. So he's got 343 for the Forest Service. We have 271 Type 3 engines in the state of California. So our Type 4s, so the other types, as you see them go down in size, Type 4s and 5s, those are what you're going to see out of region. We actually have one here. It was on the fire yesterday. As part of Task Force 4600, we have it's a BLM engine. So it's a Type 4, so it's designed to run around in the deserts with a big tank of water because they really don't have any water in the deserts. So they have like 1,000-gallon tank with a small pump, and the guys get out and they mobile attack and chase grass fires through the desert. So big people, and they typically have a big crew so they can sub people out because they're going to be running for a long time, trying to chase that fire down on foot. And 5s and 6s are the same things. You'll see those. You can almost classify our patrol trucks, our little wet rigs that have a little pump with a 50 to a 75-gallon tank. That would be more like a Type 6 engine. That's the thing that can show up. If somebody had a campfire or something, one person's on it, they can fire up a pump and put out that abandoned campfire that somebody left in the woods, things like that.
Any questions on the engines? Two out back first. Yeah, we got some out back we'll look at after this. So hand crews. Hand crews for me are kind of the backbone, the infantry of our wildland firefighting force. We've got all the tools out there, the airplanes and helicopters and everything we all like to, show on the news and all of those kind of things. But without the hand crews, the men and women who have the hand tools, the chainsaws, who are literally boots on the ground, miles from the road, miles from their vehicles, those kind of things that are doing the hardest, dirtiest, filthiest work you could imagine, are what drives the workforce in the wildland firefighting mission. Incredibly valuable resource. Again, the typing on the crews, a Type 1 hand crew is basically a hand crew that we can have do anything. They can do hotline, they can fight initial attack fires, they can do firefighting operations, they can do mop, they can do all. There's no limitations on what we can use a Type 1 hand crew for. CAL FIRE has roughly 160 of them around the state. The Forest Service has, I don't know, USF 46 of them around the state, and then nationally, probably another couple hundred, maybe something along those lines. Usually, hand crews have not been in the purview of the local government fire departments. It just hasn't really been part of their role and responsibility and mission up until maybe now. There are some places around where local government agencies are starting to put together hand crews. The Red Hawk down here, they put together a hand crew. The Tahoe Douglas up in the Tahoe Basin has put together a hand crew that we're trying to figure out how we're really going to use it effectively in the system. And I'm glad they're doing it. We just need to figure out how to really make them part of the system and use them. It's a relatively new resource. But so yeah, hand crews incredibly important to us. The Amarillo Lorado unit has 18 Type 1 crews in the unit between Amarillo County here and the Tahoe Basin, which that's the most in the state, which means that when fires start burning, our hand crews are probably going to get sent out quite a bit. But hand crews, we have a bunch of them, incredibly valuable. Any questions on the hand crew piece of it? Yes, sir.
Now, the non-inmate crews, you guys have 2 new ones? Is that
so? Yep. So for CAL FIRE, for decades, going back to like 40s and 50s, the CAL FIRE hand crew program has been in partnership with the Department of Corrections. So we have had a couple hundred Type 1 inmate hand crews for decades in the state. Bunch of changes in CDCR 5, 6, 7 years ago. The inmates that populated our hand crews were no longer in jail. So we had to do something different. So we started populating Firefighter 1 crews with our free Firefighter 1s and partnering with the Triple Cs to use the Triple C Corps members to staff hand crews. My opinion is incredibly successful programs, both of them. I'm glad we're doing those things. they're allowing us to do things operationally that we couldn't do with inmate crews before, just based on line of sight supervision that we don't have to do anymore. That we can squad the crews up and put them in different parts of the fire and some of those kind of things. We can rely on engineers to be squad bosses, and it's a fantastic resource for us having the free person crews. I'm not going to knock the inmate labor force that we've used for a bunch of years. I can't understate how valuable that labor force has been for us through the decades. I don't want that labor force to go away. They are an incredibly good firefighting force with a well-trained hand crew with a good captain and do unbelievable things out there. And I don't want that workforce to go away, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, CAL FIRE is actively developing the other side of things, the quote unquote free person crews right now. I think that's a good thing.
For the hand crews, how many folks are usually on it, and where do the hotshot crews fit into that?
So, yeah, typing standards for the CAL FIRE crews, up to 17 people plus the leader of the crew is what we have on every one of them. The average that kind of rolls out every morning is probably around 15 on the bus, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, for the hotshot crews, so our hotshot crew is stationed up off of Slide Park Road there in the neighborhood of Sierra Springs. Our crew, actually, we had a staffing kind of we'll call it an upgrade a few years ago, and now that crew is actually staffed at 25 individuals. And those crews are designed, like I said, typically the superintendent on that crew is a division supervisor, so they can actually run a chunk of a large fire. Hotshot crews are traditionally designed for large incidents. They're designed to be inserted or walk into the area that nobody else wants to go to and live with the stuff on their back for a week at a time, getting supplied with water or MREs or whatever they need to do. They're also locally, when we use them, like we used them yesterday, they were down on the Bonanza fire as well. One of the resources that got ordered up, they were on the bottom, cutting out a big chunk of that working with helicopters. That's what the crew is designed to do, is work in those environments and do that kind of stuff. Additionally, locally for our typing, we also have our Iron Mountain crews, which are 3 Type 2I8 10-person modules. So it's a 10-person crew. Those we have 3 of those stationed around the forest that we use for initial attack. And when they go off forest to support a large incident, we'll marry them up and we'll send them out as a 20-person crew to go handle that.
Okay, moving on.
Indian crews. I worked at fire camps for private contractors, etc., and dealt with them quite a bit, and ate their food like you probably did too. But with the letting out, clearing the jails, if you will, has that? Yes, that's been a problem to maintain staffing, I'm sure. What do you see as the long term? And the inmate crews, I've worked out in the field with them. They're incredible.
Phenomenal. I agree.
But how do you see the future of those hand crews and your reliance on them?
Both agencies, CAL FIRE and CGCR, understand the importance of the hand crew program. I guess the answer is I don't know where it's going to go. This is, unfortunately, it's a politically driven answer. It has to do with where the politics of the state go, and I can't predict that. If the state continues where we're at with this climate and that kind of thing, we're probably going to continue to see the impacts of the hand crew thing. If there's changes politically and some of those kind of things, maybe that'll stabilize a little bit. But I just don't know. It's okay. Dozers. Incredibly valuable wildland firefighting resource, incredibly hard on the ground though, but very effective when you need them. I don't know the number that CAL FIRE has around the state, but it's not 100. It's probably 40 or 50 or somewhere kind of in that neighborhood. So in this unit, we have 2. We have one at Sutter Hill Station in Amarillo County and one at El Dorado Station just across the street there. You guys have one Camino. So 3 firefighting dozers in the county here. Our neighboring counties are roughly the same. There's a couple in Calaveras County. There's a couple in Placer County. Sac Metro has one that we use quite frequently. So they're around us and available. The ones that are belong to and are operated by CAL FIRE and the fire departments, though, are probably the minority. Like we talked earlier on, though, that anytime we get to any kind of drawdown state with our dozers, we're going straight to the hired equipment. We're hiring private vendors to come staff our fire stations and populate the fire lines and a lot of those kind of things. The CAL FIRE dozers and I think the federal dozers are all D5s and 6s, that kind of thing. So a medium-sized dozer, right? They're Type 2s, I think is what they are, Type 2. So we've used like the D8s before on the private equipment side of things. Those are amazing machines that do push a lot of dirt out there. So we use the heck out of the dozers. Most of our dozer program, especially on the suppression side, is private equipment.
And locally for us here, like Mike was talking about, between the D5s and D6s, they're really good at pushing the brush, and they're really good and maneuverable enough to walk around big timber. So if we get dozers that are too big, you can't push over every tree. So it's good to have medium-sized dozers that can kind of walk in between the big timber and do that. If you get down to Southern California and the bushes down there with big hills and all they have left are bushes, it's great to have D8s because that might take our local dozer here 2 passes to put that line in the back that the D8 down south is doing in 1. So different tools for different environments, and I think the mix and stuff that we have here and our qualified operators I love working with CAL FIRE operators, just like they probably love working with our Forest Service guys. These guys are highly skilled and really good at their jobs.
Yeah, agreed. Water tenders. Again, CAL FIRE doesn't have water tenders. We rely on local government agencies and again the private vendors to supply the water tenders. And Forest Service. So yeah, and we use the heck out of water tenders on any given incident. We're gonna an incident of size, the caliber fire, I think we had 200 water tenders here for 3 or 4 weeks or something along those lines. But it's just in the nature of where we work, away from hydrant systems and that kind of thing, that supplying water to the firefighters is a necessary thing. So, yeah.
Typically, what you'll see too with the local government is they'll have larger water tenders, and that's going to be designed for anything from help and support structure fires where hydrants are a little bit farther away and getting their water shuttle going. On our side of the Forest Service ones, we have 2. We call them tacticals because they're always typically staffed with 2 people, but they're smaller, single axle, 1,500 gallon tenders. It's designed for us to use in the mountains on our narrow roads, so we can get into and out of a lot of places that these bigger tenders that the county operates can.
I remember on the Caldor fire, there were these water stations, like a hyper big outdoor above ground pool.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Are those private contractors or does that belong to the state?
No. All the above. We have them. The Forest Service has them. Private contractors have them. Most of the time, not many, but a lot of the times now we hire private company water tenders. They'll come with those things because that just makes them a more valuable asset for us. And they can charge us for it too. It's there's a thing that but we do. But those are things that we do. The description was perfect. It's probably 5,000 or 6,000 gallons. It's fold out. We call them porta tanks, and they're basically above ground pools, and they just fold out. We use water tenders or helicopters or something, porta pumps and creeks to fill them, and then fire engines can draft out of them way out in the middle of nowhere. So they are an excellent source of water for us out there, and they're getting big enough now where we actually use them with the helicopters to both fill them and can dip out of them too if there's no dip sites around. So we put those things all over the place.
That is my hydrant in the woods.
There you go. Yep. Yep. Okay, aircraft. Probably the biggest change in our resources that we've had available to us in the last 6 or 8 years, 10 years maybe, has come in the aviation side of things. In 2014 or 13, whatever year it was, we started replacing the Huey helicopter fleet with Black Hawk helicopters, a modern helicopter, and that kind of thing. Couldn't believe it took 10 years to do it, but I think we're replacing the last Huey, I think this year maybe. So modernizing the helicopter fleet with Black Hawk helicopters. We've added the C-130 program to the CAL FIRE fleet. A couple of them are going to be at McClellan down the road there. We have 2 in service right now. There's going to be a 3rd one in service in August, and then hopefully 2 or 3 more over the winter. By this time next year, hopefully we've got the whole C-130 fleet in service. And what those airplanes are great big Coast Guard airplanes that CAL FIRE is taking possession of, and we've got a company that's putting tanks in them as we speak to turn them into wildland firefighting planes. And the beauty of those planes for me is the sophistication of the tank system going into it. It's not just a door system where the bottom of the plane opens and the retardant falls out anymore. It is a calibrated, computerized delivery system with nozzles and pressure and all of those kind of things where they can put down 6 or 8 miles of retardant line on the thin strip, or they can dump the whole thing in one shot. Just the things they can do with it, the plane and the tank system in there now is getting better and better and better. Like I talked about, one pilot, one plane put out a 6-acre grass fire just by flying around it the other day with just by using the controls on his tank. It's a like I said, the technology that we're getting in the air world is becoming more and more and more valuable. Much like on the private industry side of things, a lot of our planes now are coming out of the private side of things because people have recognized that there's a real need for this, and there's a business opportunity out there, and quite frankly, we use it. And there's some really good companies out there that provide us with aircraft, with helicopters and airplanes and some of those kind of things. So that fleet gets bigger and bigger every year. Just the fact that we can hit the button and order a VLAT and get one out of Tucson, Arizona, drop it in Single Springs in 45 minutes. That's the firefighting system is getting built out, and like I said, that's a good thing.
And other piece out of that too. So with our helicopters too. So locally, we just had a ship on the forest north of us in the Tahoe National Forest. They just got rappel certified. So all of those fires up in the forest where it's really difficult to access, hiking in, getting into. We have other aerial firefighters, the smoke jumper program. I'm sure everybody's familiar with. We send those guys not so much in El Dorado County, but in Amador County down in the McCallany Wilderness. We probably send in smoke jumpers 3 or 4 times a season to fires that would take 2 or 3 days to hike into. But we do have that is an added asset the Forest Service has. Is we do have rappel ships that are now getting certified locally, so quicker attack on small lightning fires up in wilderness areas, things like that.
Yep, and then the UAS program that's changing every day for us. That's the drone program for us. That's drones. The technology behind the drones, especially coming out of the military side of things, has been there for a long time, and we're just starting to get the benefits of some of those technologies. I have no idea where we're going to go with that. Right now, the technology is really around on like the intel side of things, meaning that they're very good at sensory missions and mapping and a lot of those kind of things. We're not really into using them yet for the suppression side of things. Like we don't have them yet that are going to drop water and those kind of things. But there are prototypes built of those things. There's a company that built the Black Hawk helicopter that flies like a drone that will drop water on fires. They're flying it in Santa Cruz right now. So those things are developing.
And another component of that too is we utilize the drone program, especially not so much. I think a little bit in the state, but more so out of region is using it as part of our firing operations when we're doing large scale firing operations to limit the exposure to firefighters. Having to send folks in 1,000 feet to get depth on a burn and tripping over rocks and everything in the middle of the night, or it could be a real steep cliff or a long haul out. We can send those things over. They just drop little ping pong balls that ignite when they hit the ground, and we can control that. They set up geofences for them, so if a gust of wind blows it outside of the yard, so to speak, it shuts off and it won't let it drop any balls. So it's got some really good technology, and most of them actually have like Mike was saying, it's the intel piece. I use them a lot at night. They see great. They see great at night and great through smoke. So I can use those things. They'll zero in on a spot fire, in a smoky day on something that's like the size of a dime. And then the drone pilot can be up staring at it, and you can just watch and walk the firefighters right into it. We're picking up spot fires that are a lot smaller with that technology.
Yes, sir.
What about your night fighting capability now? And specifically, the one going back to the Caldor fire when they had that twin engine helicopter come up from Los Angeles and sat on the ground and they turned them away. What happened to that?
So I'll get to that question in a second, though. So it's a real question. It comes up time and time again. But so the question about the night flying capabilities, those things are coming along. Cal Fire, unfortunately, was not at the forefront of that technology and leading that mission and some of those kind of things. Some other fire departments were on those things, the military, all those kind of things. So when the Caldor fire happened, Cal Fire was in the process of building out its night flying capabilities with the training piece and equipping the Black Hawk helicopters with the night vision goggles and coming up with the protocols and all of those kind of things. Since then, that program for Cal Fire has been developed where our Black Hawks now fly at night. We used them last night on this fire last night. They flew out there till around midnight or something along those lines. It was probably 12 months after the Caldor fire in Amador County in 2022, the electric fire in the McCallany River drainage. Cal Fire put its first nighttime flying helicopter on that fire 12 months after the Caldor fire. So Cal Fire is caught up mostly with some of those kind of things. We do have a night flying mission now. The McClellan Air Base in Sacramento that belongs to us is a night flying Black Hawk helicopter base. We can get the night flying stuff out of. That's where they came. That's where they came last night to the fire we had across the street there too. So that program is still getting better and better. We're still going to develop safety protocols and all those kind of things. The aviation will move slowly in those things because one mistake is cost lives, so it's catastrophic. So things do tend to move a little bit slower in that. So anyway, that is getting developed and growing. The effectiveness of working at night with water dropping helicopters is blowing me away. Like I was a little bit skeptical about how much effort we were putting into doing these things, but the first time you see it happen at 2:30 in the morning, and there's a line of helicopters, it is unbelievable. So no, that technology is good and needs to continue to develop. The thing that happened on the Caldor fire is a very unfortunate thing. There was a 60-minute story about it. There was all kinds of things out there that just unfortunately were not based in reality. There was an effort by the people that owned that helicopter to make sure it got used and publicized and all those kind of things. We didn't order it. It showed up. We didn't release it. It went back to Lake Isabella. We didn't order it again, and it showed up again when the fire got into Lake Tahoe Basin. There were some things around that were just were not clean at all. There was some actors in that had other motivations. But at the end of the day, again, a ridiculously effective piece of firefighting equipment. The reason it didn't fly wasn't because we didn't want it or need it or any of those kind of things. It's because the conditions didn't meet the safety standards that they had set forward. The visibility wasn't where it needed to be, and these are all protocols that they brought with them. That's why it sat on the deck. Is they, in a good way, they did the right thing. They met their own mission and flew to their own standards, which unfortunately the conditions a lot of nights weren't conducive to night flying helicopters.
And last year I was doing night operations on the Crozier, and we had a night helco and 2 night water droppers that I used for probably the first 4 or 5 nights on that thing. I wish we would have had more because it was very effective. It was keeping the fire right where we needed it, and we were able to keep. I think some of our most active burning conditions on that fire were in the middle of the night.
And they still keep the super scooper at Tahoe?
They move around, and there's always 2 of them, and they fly in pairs. So that's the plus side. If you see one, there's always 2. They move around. I don't know where they're at right now, but traditionally at some point in the summer, we'll end up hosting them out of South Lake Tahoe. It's kind of what happens is they typically show up around August.
Okay, moving on. Last couple things here. Some things. So the fire camera system. Again, something that kind of came into fruition 4 or 5, 5, 6 years ago, so maybe 6 or 7 years. Started out as I was skeptical. Is this really going to be effective as we think it might be? Some of that kind of thing. And I don't have a good vision of like where technology goes and the capabilities and that kind of thing. But after seeing how that system was built out with the technology behind it and the accuracy of the location services with it and that kind of thing, it is part of now how we do business. We all have it on our phones. If there's fire dispatch, every one of us just looks on the phone real quick to see what the camera's showing. There's no more waiting for reports on conditions and any of those kind of things. It's publicly accessible so the homeowners can see it and all those kind of things. So kudos to that camera system. We love it. It's a good thing for us. I was really skeptical that it could replace like human lookouts and that kind of thing. And I'm on the fence on that one still, but the responsiveness we're getting back with some of the trial programs on detection services that come through triangulation and that kind of thing are spot on. They're accurate. So then that's going to get better as we go through the next 2 or 3 years. And it's become part of how we do business right now. And I think that's only going to kind of continue on. It's a really, really good thing for us.
And still staffing lookouts. So Cal Fire does staff and Forest Service, we still staff our lookout towers, so we still have that human element in there too as the technology's coming along.
Absolutely.
I hope this is not a silly question, but is there any satellite technology in play?
I am sure there is. Maybe probably more so than we know about. A lot of things that are developed on the military side of things, I have no idea what's out there. Something that I finally got a glimpse of maybe 6 months ago from some of the stuff that happens in this county is the technology is getting developed outside of like government and that kind of thing through private industry and whatnot is mind-boggling. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes depending on the incident, if you have like a large incident, a team going, and suddenly just your intel shop's going to receive a snapshot, and you're like, "Where'd this come from?" Don't ask. Okay, got it. So somebody flew over and took some really high res pictures for us, and we appreciate it. But hey, next time, can we have them do this? No, we don't tell them what to do. They're just gonna drop stuff if they're in the neighborhood. Okay, got it.
How does your nighttime fly over various visual infrared or something that where they track the boundaries or how's it?
Yeah, the fire ship, we had them yesterday, and I think if you guys did that end up getting loaded on Watch Duty, you probably did at some point.
Yeah.
The perimeter, yes. So that was actually an OEM's product that got launched. So it's the fire ship, so it's the forward-looking infrared. Same thing. We use that tool, and I think that ship got up probably about an hour into the IA yesterday and started flying orbits.
Really early.
Yes, and the plus side of that ship is that ship typically flies above our TFR. So our flight restriction area that we have where all the water dropping and all the aircraft are working. Sorry, TFR, temporary flight restriction. That's what that stands for.
Are those planes? Are those planes flying during the incident, or do they usually go over at night when the?
They can do both. And the plus side is that thing flies at a much higher elevation than our operational aircraft. So it can be flying its own missions up here while all our water dropping aircraft is doing stuff. We don't have to shut down our operations for them to do their job. That's the plus side of it.
When I look at the flight track or something, it's a civilian, it's a private contractor.
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, contractor with always state,
yeah. Contracted through, yes. Yeah.
Front row. Forgot the question.
Just real quickly though, in response to that question about satellite, also they are used for essentially post wildfire response, burned area emergency rehab, and using reflectance for identifying soil impacts.
Yeah, and the LiDAR technology in there, great too.
The camera website address.
Alert California.
Alert California Fire Camera. You can Google that and take it right to the site. Yep.
There's a smaller site too called Alert Tahoe.
Okay, incident command teams, local, state, and national. The incident command teams have become a big part of the incident management process in the last 20 or 30 or 40 years in the state. As the wildland fire problem has gotten bigger, the teams have changed their operations. We've had, all those kind of things. So from the CAL FIRE side of things, we have 6 Type 1 incident command teams, and they're statewide teams. They're made up from members all across the state. I've got probably 20 or 30 people that work in this unit that are members of the different teams and that kind of thing. So they have become a really busy resource in the last 9 or 10 years. So we haven't had a team deployment yet this year in the state, but give it a day. We'll see. We're going to start putting those teams on the road here this week, next week, but it's coming fairly quick, and they're going to stay engaged from now until whenever we get done with fire season, October, November, December, who knows. So 6 Type 1 teams. They have 62 rostered members on them right now. It's an incident commander, a command and general staff. So we handle, incident command, obviously, the incident information functions, the liaison functions, all the safety functions on the incident, obviously the incident operations, logistics planning, all those kind of things. That the team operation is what we see at the Placerville Fairgrounds when we have the caliber fire, the Crozier, those kind of things. That's what the team activation looks like, is the 2 or 3 or 4,000 people, the big base camps, the big structured briefings, the big structured IAPs, and all of those kind of things. Locally, we don't necessarily have Type 1 teams. What we have is Type 3 organizations necessarily. We don't have teams put together with standing members and those kind of things. We have organizations that we know we need to fill positions on, and we have people identified all around the county and in Sacramento County, other places that can come fill those positions. So when something happens like what we had yesterday, we didn't need a team to come in and run that thing yesterday. What we need is a little bit of help to make sure we get food ordered and IAPs made and maps made and some of those kind of things. So we bring in a small organization to really help with those kind of things on the smaller fires. As the fires get bigger, that support function just grows and grows and grows until you get to what we have we call a Type 1 base camp, like in Placerville there too. So so the Forest Service, I should say, the Forest Service in partnership with a lot of the other federal agencies also have Type 1 teams nationally. And I don't know if you want to speak on.
I'm trying to remember the numbers. Yeah, 44. Yeah, 44 teams. Yeah, we have a lot of teams nationally. It's broken out by region. There's a national rotation, and with the Fed teams, we're so ability to respond to anything. Like what Mike was talking about earlier, we kind of briefly touched on that Stafford Act. That's where essentially the federal agencies get activated by presidential declaration. That's where you'll see us take the wildland hats off, and we'll go start supporting hurricane response. We'll be setting up teams to grid across 7 western states looking for space shuttle parts, all that kind of stuff. So we'll support stuff outside of wildland nationally and internationally. So we send folks to the feds and our teams and our personnel are typically go up to Canada or Australia international to help and support wherever we can.
We talk about the cooperative nature of the fire service in California in general. They are CAL FIRE incident management teams. They are U.S. Forest Service incident management teams. It changed a little bit for us year by year, but this year we're about 20% staffing on our 6 teams come out of local government employees. So people that work for local government agencies, they are on our teams through an agreement, and we need those people to be our not usually not options, but usually the plans chiefs and the logistics chiefs and those kind of things. So it is not a closed shop with Cal Fire and the U.S. Forest Service. We open this up to the fire service in California. They're Cal Fire led, but we open the door because we want and need the breadth of people we have in the state. So it is truly a cooperative thing as well. So. Kind of going down the list here, situation awareness and technology and emerging technologies. We've kind of been chatting about that as we've kind of gone here. That's really kind of the next thing that's I think we're going to see leaps and bounds and growth and changing in how we do business in the wildland arena is going to be on those things. And when you have foundations like the Moore Foundation involved, I didn't know about the Moore Foundation until 4 or 5 months ago, but it's Gordon Moore who founded Intel 50 years ago or something like that. And they've got hundreds and hundreds of $1 million as part of their endowment, and they want to contribute back to the wildland fire arena in California. And they're already engaged in a lot of places with, again, suppression technology, Intel technology, all of those kind of things, predictive services. And it's mind-boggling out there what's going on right now in the world around us with all the technology that are emerging out there. Cal Fire is finally in a position where we're going to start hopefully partnering with some outside agencies and some of those kind of things to really grow these emerging technologies as best as we can. But I don't even know how to talk about this. The world is so big on this one.
And then whoever brought up the executive order from last Friday, I believe that was actually part of the mandate, was for the federal agencies to start exploring and advancing our technology and use of Intel out there.
Okay. Kind of bringing it. Oh, yeah.
In these large.
I'm thinking back to the Caldor fire when me and my wife were evacuated for 18 days. So I was watching a lot of the presentations, and I was wondering, is Cal Fire in your incident management teams emphasizing, let's say, communication, professional skills? For instance, the morning briefing and the evening briefing. There were people who, let's say, did it with a little bit more skill than others.
Well said. How about this? We always look for opportunities to bring people up in the organization, and there are things that you only get to be good at by doing them. I'm not a public speaker, but I do enough now where I can sit up here and talk comfortably and those kind of things. And those skill sets exist in a lot of different areas out there. And we have a trainee mentorship program. They do as well, and they do as well. We all share it where there's a very structured process where we get people from no skill, no experience to skill and experience. And there's training classes, all those things. But part that you're seeing is that real world experience where we put those guys out on Front Street, because the way to learn those things is by doing them. And you're right, we got some people that are extremely good at a lot of things, and some people that are just learning. And yeah.
I still prefer to be in the chaos than on a stage.
Amen. Amen.
Last slide.
Yeah, last slide.
So just kind of bringing it all back home with how we are working together to make sure that the system is best and always looking to improve our system. As we've kind of mentioned numerous times throughout this discussion, the cooperation amongst all the fire agencies has been here for decades, with all the fire agencies working together, whether it's local, state, or federal, along with our partners at the sheriff's office. Part of the fire agencies in this county also includes the partnership with the JPA, and the JPA is the ambulance side of the house. All of your ambulances are operated via the fire departments in this county. So there's always been a strong partnership there. One of the things that got added to our system here just a handful of years ago was the conversation started taking place with OES and El Dorado Hills Fire about embedding one of the El Dorado Hills personnel into OES. So Troy's team of 7, one of those is a fire department person. And that really helped close any gaps or capture any blind spots with that OES team, because now he has direct connection working day in, day out with a fire person, which really just kind of, again, demonstrates that partnership and improves the situation. And then recently, post Caldor, the leadership at the county supervisor level with the creation of OWOPR, which also helps with a lot of fire prevention activities and really expands on that cooperation piece. There were agencies out there that were doing proactive fuel management, the Fire Safe Council's RCD, which I don't know, I'm still not sure what RC. I think I can spell it now, but I'm still not sure like what exactly Mark Egbert and his crew do. But yeah, it's a lot. They do a lot. It's amazing. But you know, again, that work that's being done on the prevention side that ties in with the suppression side, we're looking for those benefits that come down the road. You know, the local county fire safe council we're sitting here today, and then the local ones underneath that. A lot of partnerships. I know that a lot of fire agencies are out. We get invited to the fire safe councils. We have those communications with that group and the Firewise community, which is those communities are beginning to develop really as a result of the fire safe councils. So a lot of different organizations, a lot of change, but it's all moving in a very positive direction. I think at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, which is to make El Dorado County as wildfire safe as possible. And the cooperation really is the key to it. None of us are going to be able to do this on our own. No agency is going to mitigate this on their own. It takes all of us and all of us to make sure that we can reduce that risk. But when those fires do occur, as we saw yesterday, no injuries, no loss of life, no homes. So, I mean, those are all wins that we can check those boxes on. So that's really kind of the goal of our group and the cooperation and collaboration that we have with all of you out here as well is that common goal of making El Dorado County as safe from wildfires as possible.
Okay, have to get the we could do just literally straw. No, look, I've been doing this a long time. Might know a thing or two about it and been all over the state, and I'm not just saying it. They didn't have to be here today, and they're not making up anything they're saying about how they work together because you can't make that up. It shows it's genuinely real. What we have in El Dorado County, because I've been other places, is absolutely genuine. This team, whether it's our federal partners, local government, Sheriff's Office, CAL FIRE, all the partners, this is real. And regardless of who we have on the fires or on emergencies, you can depend that this group and the people that work with and around them have that exact same philosophy and mentality. And the fact that they just spent 2 hours with us, touching the surface of how things work is a testament to their commitment to who we are, what we do in our communities, because they all live in and around us as well. So I want to thank you guys immensely for taking the time and for watching. We'll put all their personal phone numbers online so we can call them with all your phone. Thank you. It's all my great. Thank you.
And then if you guys want outside, there's a couple of different, there's a Forest Service engine, a CAL FIRE engine. So you guys can kind of look at the differences and inspect if you want. Crews will be out there to answer your question.
So much. Okay. I'm just going.